house in the woods, a woman named Madison Young is cooking a delicious dinner. Everything is sizzling and bubbling as she carefully watches the process. Suddenly, the sound of cooking goes silent for a moment. Madison receives a message on her phone from her neighbor, Sarah. Sarah is bored, waiting for her husband, John, and asks if she can come over. Madison invites her. After that, Madison shakes the cat food, and the cat runs inside from the yard. Sarah arrives, and it's clear that Madison is deaf. They communicate using sign language, although Madison can read lips. Sarah mentions that she has read Madison's new book and is impressed by it, adding that she couldn't predict the ending, which she usually can. Madison shares that she hears a voice in her head that sounds like her mother's, as if guiding her. It turns out that Madison lost her hearing at the age of 13 due to an illness, and some memories of voices still remain. During their conversation, the alarm light goes off. The dinner has burned. The alarm is very loud because although Madison can't hear sounds, she can feel vibrations. The cat is fine. Sarah invites Madison to eat at her place, but Madison says she needs to work. Sarah promises to stop by tomorrow and leaves. Madison gets a message from someone named Craig, who says he's thinking of her, but she quickly deletes it, not wanting to have anything to do with him. Madison's bestseller is called Midnight Mass. She is working on a new book, listening to the voice in her head, but it's not helping much. Things aren't going well, and she's even considering rewriting the book entirely. Afterward, she calls Craig, but quickly hangs up. He calls her back, but she declines the call again. Craig is persistent and calls on her mobile, but Madison doesn't answer. Suddenly, Sarah appears outside, screaming for help, trying to get inside. Madison can't hear her, as the door is locked. An arrow hits Sarah's back, and a masked maniac appears, killing her. The entire time, Madison is walking around the kitchen, unaware of what's happening outside. The maniac sees her from behind, realizing she's not reacting. He tries to get her attention, but to no avail. He then drags Sarah's body away as Madison returns to work. However, the maniac also returns and watches her through another window. He enters the house and stands behind her, pulling out a knife. But suddenly, he becomes interested in what she's writing and decides not to kill her right away. Madison receives a call, and the maniac steps out of sight. It's her sister Max, asking how the book is coming along. They talk about story endings and mention Craig. Meanwhile, the maniac steals Madison's phone. Max notices something strange in the background during the video call and says someone is wandering around the house. Madison thinks it's just the cat and reassures her sister. The call ends, and Madison starts looking for the cat, shaking the food again, but the cat doesn't come. She sits back at her laptop but gets a message from her own phone. She opens it and sees photos of herself walking around the house and now sitting at the laptop. Madison realizes someone is in the house. She looks outside and sees the maniac casually walking around. She manages to lock the doors and windows, but the maniac disappears from sight, remaining somewhere outside. Madison tries to call 911 from her laptop, but the maniac cuts the power, knocking out the Wi-Fi. She tries to connect to her neighbor's Wi-Fi, but it's password protected. The maniac appears at the window, showing that Madison is now entirely under his control. He then slashes the tires of her car as a display of power. Madison leaves a note on the window, saying she won't tell anyone, she didn't see his face, and that her boyfriend will be home soon. The maniac reveals his face and tells her that he knows she doesn't have a boyfriend. He promises that he'll get to her when the time is right, hinting that he can break in at any moment. Then he returns and brings Sarah's body, pretending she's knocking on the window. Madison is shocked, unable to believe what's happening, and panic overwhelms her. She opens the door and turns on the car alarm, hoping to distract the maniac, and tries to escape through a window on the other side of the house. Madison searches Sarah's body, hoping to find her phone, but comes up empty. The maniac tries to scare her, but she manages to break his fingers and then hit him with a hammer. The maniac, wounded and irritated, becomes more aggressive. In the darkness, they play a game of cat and mouse. Madison hides, and the maniac can't find her. However, when she tries to flee the house, he shoots his crossbow but misses. She hides inside the house again. Madison makes another attempt to escape through a second-floor window, using a thrown flashlight to distract the psychopath, but the plan fails, and this time she is hit with an arrow in the leg. The maniac climbs after her, but Madison manages to grab his crossbow and strike him. He falls but soon resumes chasing her. She hides in the house, pretending to reload the crossbow. Wounded, she hides in the bathroom, pulls out the arrow, and bandages her wound. But blood continues to seep through. She can't reload the crossbow because the string is too tight, and she lacks the strength. The maniac watches her futile attempts through the window. John arrives, looking for Sarah, and knocks on the front door. Madison can't hear him, but the maniac is ready. He pretends to be a police officer and forces John to kneel and show his ID. He pretends to believe John and questions him about Madison. However, the lack of a uniform and the maniac's odd behavior make John suspicious. The maniac accidentally drops an earring he took from Sarah's body, and John begins to suspect something is wrong. He convinces the maniac that Madison hides a key somewhere under the flower pots, and while the maniac goes to search, John prepares to attack him. But Madison, appearing near the door, knocks and distracts John, allowing the maniac to strike first, stabbing him. The maniac then thanks Madison for her help. John is still alive and struggles with the maniac, giving Madison a chance to escape. However, John doesn't last long and is ultimately killed with a rock. With his last strength, he tries to strangle the maniac but weakens and lets go. Madison hears the voice in her head, considering her options. She realizes she doesn't have time to run. She'll bleed out. The only option is to kill the enemy. Meanwhile, the cat returns, and the maniac wants to kill it. But Madison comes out of the house and shoots him in the shoulder with the crossbow, which he managed to reload after all. The maniac is hurt but not seriously, and Madison has to flee again. She fires the last arrow, but when she reaches for it, the maniac traps her hand in the door. Madison is in severe pain but can't scream. She can only show her suffering, which clearly delights the maniac. He breaks her fingers with his foot. The maniac, thrilled, watches her in agony. She stands up and writes, "Do it, coward," on the glass with her blood. The maniac realizes the time has come and goes to get a crowbar. While he's gone, Madison leaves notes about the maniac on her laptop and a final goodbye message. The man breaks into the house, and Madison hides in the bathroom, sitting behind the door. However, the maniac is already there, standing right behind her. Feeling his breath on her neck, Madison stabs him with a knife, retreating just before he attacks her. She injures his knee, but again, it doesn't cause significant damage, and she flees to the kitchen. There, she pretends to lose consciousness, and when the maniac finds her and is about to finish her off, Madison first blinds him by spraying an aerosol in his eyes, then disorients him using a flashbang alarm system. Despite this, the maniac gets to her and almost strangles her, but Madison manages to find a corkscrew and stabs him in the neck. This wound is fatal. Madison takes her phone from the psychopath's body and calls 911. Afterward, she sits on the porch of the house, pets her cat, and watches as the police lights approach in the distance. In the final shot, she smiles mysteriously.